My name is Michael. Born and raised here in Victoria. I sustained an injury in March of 2019 by way of an ischemic hypoxic injury. I suffered that as a result of a suicide attempt through using carbon monoxide poisoning. I left Victoria in around 1981 or so and started my little journey around the world. Worked on cruise ships, spent time up in Alaska, all sorts of fun stuff. And then went to school again, got my education on my diplomas in real estate and finance. Ended up all over the place, ended up out in Halifax where I spent the last prior to my injury, it was 20 years in Halifax. Met a girl, fell in love, got married for the first time. And that unfortunately didn't work out. But I was woken up on the garage floor, taken to the ICU, put in a hyperbaric chamber overnight, intubated, respirator, doped up. I had both lethal and toxic levels of carbon monoxide in my system of just shy of 40% of my blood was not able to carry oxygen. And I didn't really expect to wake up. I woke up the next morning in the ICU. The last thing I remember was pouring more gasoline into my snowblower. I had my snowblower, my motorcycle, and my generator going in the garage. Was released into the care of my wife and her brother, who, when we got home, decided that suicide was something they couldn't handle, and they got kicked out of my house that morning, like 12 hours after getting out of the hospital. I was given a couple of hours to pack my suitcase, and that obviously caused quite a bit of chaos, quite a bit of confusion, because I was out, didn't know what the hell was going on. My sister and my mother intervened, and apparently there had been some plans around a certain day, because my wife presented me with a separation agreement a few hours after getting out of the hospital. Expected me to sign it. And when my family heard that, they panicked. They said, what the hell, something's... So they just said, get him out of Halifax and back to Victoria now. So that afternoon I got on a plane, apparently. Flew from Halifax to Victoria, 11 hours with changes and stuff. Landed here. Remember thinking, what am I doing in California? It's so warm here. And I was like, and it was one of those, like you wake up from a dream and you're kind of like, where the hell am I? And I had 2 suitcases, and that's what I started here with, was 2 suitcases 3 years ago. Brain injury and mental health are tied together. Oftentimes, there's the correlation between the two sometimes is quite distinct. If not before the injury, definitely after the injury, because trying to cope with a new reality using a broken guideline to interpret a complex world, where the signaling and the return signaling, the feedback signaling, may not be working anymore. And what that does is it creates a lot of fear, it creates a lot of frustration, and fear was huge because my system would crash, and My eyesight would start to go, I'd start to get shaky, I'd have difficulty breathing. It was like the same sensation as when I was in the garage. It's like you can feel it and see it kind of going down. And for the first couple of years, or the first year and a half or so, I had no idea where it was going. I had no idea how far down it was going to go. And that ended me in the hospital a few times because friends and neighbors and everything called ambulances for me when I would pass out. The biggest challenge has been a frustration of not knowing what is going on, not understanding why I have to sleep for 2 or 3 days sometimes, understanding how difficult the stimulus can be is probably the big thing. For me, the big ones are sound and sight. When I walk outside, I'm always wearing sunglasses, and I always have earbuds in to protect me from cars going by. Understanding the impact of the stimulus, light, sound, movement, noise, food, energy, sleep, you name it, whatever, memories, social events, obligations, work, anything that causes the brain to activate. And it gets processed somewhere in this gray matter, and it creates a response, always. And that response is what the world judges us by. One thing that I'm a firm believer in is what I call angels. I had an angel fly into my life, a lady who I hadn't seen in 35 years, my cousin. She comes in out of the blue, calls me up one day and says, I want to take you for coffee. She sits me down, and you have to know this lady, she's just wonderful. She just stares at me and she goes, you have a brain injury. I'm taking you to VBIS. I just kept cutting things out of my life until I got it down to a manageable point so I could start to build. And now I want to start slowly bringing stuff back into my world. And VBIS plays a huge role in that because it creates community. It creates community for me to get out into the world, talk with other people, and actually have interactions with them in a safe, accepting, understanding way. Folks at VBIS understand what's going on behind the eyes. They understand the history, they understand the challenges, and they understand that sometimes this is just a presentation. It's just like, I may present like things are wonderful, and 2 minutes later the door closes and they crash and